Warm readings from the high tent. It's everyday shenanigans. Thank you for joining me. Happy Friday to the viewing audience. Have a safe weekend and happy holidays. This is a two-part live. The Petito family has decided to sue the Laundries for knowledge that their son, Brian Laundrie, killed their daughter, and they believe that they had knowledge. I'm going to bring you said information pertaining to that. And the second part of this live is pertaining to the Idaho Ford University students. Why is there no reward? Also, no flyers distributed pertaining to the missing students. Thank you for joining me.
The parents of Gabby Petito are now suing the attorney representing Brian Laundrie's parents, claiming that he knew their daughter had been killed. What in the world? Okay, folks, let's unpack all this.
Excuse me, the attorney. Sorry about that. There's a civil lawsuit against the family, but they're now also putting the attorney in this, second part lawsuit. Thank you for joining me. Sorry about the discrepancy, but they're suing them as well. Thank you.
So here's what we know. Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt, they're Gabby Petito's parents, say that it was, quote, insensitive, cold-hearted, and outrageous for the attorney, Steve Bertolino, to express that the Laundrie family's hope that authorities would find Gabby's remains back in September of 2021. The Petitos originally filed the lawsuit against the Laundrie parents earlier this year. We know that. The allegation is that the Laundries knew their son Brian had killed Gabby and that they knew where Gabby's remains were located but refused to speak out. Those are the allegations. But this new bit of information that they're going after the Laundrie family attorney, Steve Bertolino, this is brand new, folks. Core TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter has a closer look at the lawsuit and how we got to this point.
Check out the latest deals on all.
Sorry about that, everybody. Sorry about that.
In July 2021, 22-year-old Gabby Petito and her fiancé Brian Laundrie set off from New York State on a cross-country trip. She was an aspiring travel influencer who wanted to document her van life adventures on social media.
Me and Brian just got up and got ready, made the bed in the tent, set up. I think our plan for today is to just hang out here in the tent. Brian's stretching.
During their time on the road, Gabby Petito was in constant contact with her family and posted updates that seemed to be picture perfect, but were actually far from it.
How many times did you slap him? And then what? And his reaction was to do what? He just grabbed you?
Weeks after the Moab, Utah police investigated the couple for domestic violence, Gabby Petito disappeared. Her mother last spoke with her on August 27th. On September 1st, Brian Laundrie returned to his parents' home near Sarasota, Florida. He was driving Gabby's van, and despite pleas from Gabby's parents, he and his family refused to help police in the search for her.
I'm asking for help from the parents of Brian, and I'm asking for help of the family members and friends of the Laundrie family as well.
Just 1 minute, you guys. Sorry about that. It's work being done. Okay, everybody, let's resume this. One second.
On September 19th, Gabby's remains were found in a shallow grave in Wyoming, and Brian Laundrie was on the run. This is the home of Chris and Roberta Laundrie, where Gabby Petito and her fiance Brian Laundrie lived before their cross-country van life trip. Now, if you remember, in September of 2021, for weeks, media staked out this property, protesters staked out this property, demanding that the Laundries speak out. What happened to Gabby Petito? What happened when their son Brian Laundrie went missing? But they never would speak publicly, only through their attorney. A month later, his body was found in a nearby nature preserve.
Earlier today, investigators found what appears to be human remains, along with personal items, such as a backpack and notebook belonging to Brian Laundrie.
Now, Gabby Petito's parents are suing Brian Laundrie's parents for the emotional pain they went through while Gabby was missing. They allege in their lawsuit that the Laundries knew that their son had killed Gabby and were protecting him. According to court documents, the Laundrie and Petito families had a cordial relationship until Gabby disappeared, and the Laundries appeared to be avoiding questions about what happened to their daughter. Instead of helping them, the Petitos say the Laundries lawyered up and cut off all contact with them as the search for Gabby was underway. The Petitos also accused Christopher and Roberta Laundrie of helping Brian hide from the police and make plans for him to leave the country. Brian Laundrie admitted in a suicide note that he killed Gabby, and while he was never prosecuted, the Petitos want his parents held accountable for their actions.
I like anything fast.
All right, brief intermission. Thank you so much for joining me. This is pertaining to the Petito suing the Laundrie's attorney.
Parents held accountable for their actions.
All right, so the latest update on this, folks. Attorney Steve Bertolino, who represents the Laundries, issued a statement to the public on September 14th, 2021, when Gabby Petito was still missing. And it said that it is essentially the Laundrie family's hope that Gabby's remains would be found. And so based on that, now the Petitos are trying to make the attorney a party to this case. They're suing him as well. One of my guests has a big problem with this, and I do too. Let me bring in criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and the host of the Diva Court podcast, Marcia Minot, alongside her, of course, Court TV law enforcement analyst, Joe Ested. Okay, Marcia, go.
This is a problem. And this is a big problem because it's going to have a chilling effect on attorneys that represent their clients in civil matters such as this. When you are zealously representing your client, you've taken an oath as a lawyer that you're going to zealously represent the client. What a lawyer knows is what the client has advised them. So you put up what you know to be potentially true because you're not investigating it on your own, nor do you have a duty to do so. To sue this lawyer is totally egregious. It's a frivolous litigation, and I'm hoping the courts will sanction when they get to the bottom of why this action was filed against the attorney, because it's unfair, it's improper, and it's downright disrespectful of the judicial system.
Love everything you said, Marcia. Roz, oh, you're exactly right. When I saw this, I went, what? What? No, attorneys advocate under the law for their clients. You don't go after an attorney because of the way in which they advocated what they were relating. Attorneys are like mouthpieces for their clients, and they're knowing what their clients are telling them, right? So the Petitos are presumably saying to Steve Bertolino, hey, we hope our son's girlfriend is found, the remains are found, or she's found alive. I don't know what the exact statement was, and I have it in front of me. But he's relating what they're sharing with him to try to make him a party.
The opposite. If he were to say, we hope she's never found, Is that what you would prefer? Because the statement is also a sympathetic, empathetic statement. Why would you want to sanction someone financially for making an empathetic statement when the majority of citizens are always saying, I didn't see any remorse. They didn't even say something nice like, we hope she's found. That's what I said, and you want me to cut a check for that? Not only do you want me to cut a check, but now you want my attorney who said it for me. That's unfair.
Yeah, this is really bad. And the fact that, I'm assuming he is handling this lawsuit for them. So then what kind of a position is this putting him in? Suddenly, like, the Petito's attorneys are trying to make the laundry attorney a party so then he wouldn't be able to defend the suit. What a mess.
A lawyer cannot be a witness and a representative in the case at the same time. Now, that's a problem. Is this a legal strategy on behalf of the attorneys for the family? Because they know that if they conflict their attorney out, because he's a great guy and we know he's really good at this and he's going to get this case dismissed on a summary judgment. So we found a way to get rid of him. How we're going to get rid of him is we're going to make him a party.
That is so messed up. Yeah, I've got an issue with this. I'm all about, go after the legal issues, go after somebody if you think you have grounds for a suit, but to name an advocate, to me, you're right, Marcia, the word is chilling. That would have a chilling effect if that is allowed to. What are you doing?
All right, everybody, brief intermissions. Thank you so much for joining me. They're going in, aren't they? Well, that was the end of that content. I guess they cut that kind of short. Usually they'll let you know when they're in the video. But anyway, that's Cassette Information. Court TV is the source. Let's go over what they were discussing here in this commentary. Plans for him to leave the country. What proof do the Petitos have that he was going to leave the country? Because in the end, he killed himself. Very interesting information. Egregious, says this lady here, attorney. Erroneous. The attorney's job is to advocate for their client. And it's disrespectful to the judicial system. He can't be a witness and an attorney. They believe they're trying to get rid of him. So their option was to sue him. Is that true? Don't know. Guess you'll have to ask the Petitos that. I'm going to break down the basics pertaining to this. Things I've already repeated 1,000 times pertaining to this case. This is more of a moral issue than legal. You're entitled to tell your attorney whatever you want to tell your attorney. Many people are going to question their morality for hiring him in the first place when they weren't the ones being investigated. The son was the one that was a person of interest pertaining to Gabby's disappearance, because naturally he was the last person with her allegedly. Then her remains were found, so then you go from there as far as an investigation. So then they hire this attorney once he returns. So it's the obvious. Why would you need an attorney? The son hid for however long, do not know what day he decided to go inside of this marsh and kill himself. But they had to have knowledge that he did something to her when he returned without the van. That's obvious, whether he ever said anything, told anything. So did he ever tell his parents what happened out there? Did he confess? When did he decide to kill himself? And as I said, they had to have known something was suspect with their son when he did not return with Gabby. What did he say to his parents? Did they ask him where she was? When did he plan to kill himself? They cut off communications with the family, blocked them on social media, which is a sign of guilt, shows guilt. Hires a lawyer for what the son was responsible for, as I said, being with this young lady last, before her remains were even found. Last with her. He was the last one with her. So hiring this attorney shows guilt. Once again, blocking the family from social media, not answering her phone calls, shows guilt. Never spoke publicly about Gabby, the family, to the family. Why? Also, one would say this shows guilt. Cutting them off, not talking to them. Hiring a lawyer. The search for the son ensued by law officials. People protesting, which I thought was a waste of time, being down there protesting against this guy who we now know was dead. And if you were protesting for the family, they never spoke. They went in and out of their home as they saw fit. They're right. It did nothing. You got nothing out of it. A man dead and his parents ignoring the general public. And would they ever admit to the truth about what happened with their son and Gabby? Now they won't because they are being sued. So why would they ever admit that they knew their son had killed this young lady? The suicide plan, once again, when did he tell them? Like I said, they should have known something was suspicious with their son when he returned without her, came back with her vehicle. This was very obvious she was not alive. Fraud, used her debit credit cards to return home. Shows guilt on his part. Something happened out there. Why were they not asking about this young lady? Speaking publicly, nothing. The truck, what was he going to do with it? See, all these things showed guilt with this family. And naturally, this lawyer, because they hired him, so he had to have known something. So what did they tell the attorney about Brian? I believe he met with Brian, the attorney, if I'm not mistaken, before they went off into the woods or whatever. If indeed he talked to the lawyer, Brian Laundrie, what did he tell the attorney? And did he hatch out this plan to kill himself after speaking to the attorney? What did the attorney advise him? Naturally, we'll never know because of confidentiality. You hear in this commentary that they were all cordial with one another, the Petitos and the Laundrie'S. So this guy comes back, no daughter, with her vehicle. Now we have no communication, blocking them, not answering the phone. Very, very sick. This lady says, egregious, disrespectful to the judicial system to sue the attorney. He cannot be a witness and an attorney. And they also believe that in order to pursue the Laundrie'S, get rid of the lawyer. Was that the Petito family's plan as well? Let's get rid of this lawyer. Great points made in his commentary. Bertolino is just that. He's an attorney. Whatever he advises them is between he and them. Whatever they tell him is between they and him. There is no rule for how to defend your client. You may not agree with the people who are being defended. You may feel like they're guilty. They had knowledge of something, of a crime, but you have to prove it. And then it's after the fact. It's not planning of a crime. The lawyer would only be liable, prosecution himself, disbarment, if he was told that his client was going to kill somebody. That is the only way Bertolino could be investigated for improprieties as an attorney. Is if the Laundrie'S told him they were going to kill somebody or their son was going to kill somebody. Let's just say if the son was still alive. If the son said he was going to kill somebody and the son told the attorney this or the Laundrie'S told their attorney that. Other than that, this is just a moral issue. But it's a flip of the coin. He's their lawyer. They can tell him whatever. He can advise them whatever. But did they have knowledge that she was dead before her remains were discovered? That's the question. Did they know? Because if they knew, then yes, they have a moral and expected legal obligation to tell that they knew she was dead, where she was, and that their son killed her. But these people obviously are the type of people that have aided their children, enabled their kids, That's the reason why they have a dead son now, because he and this girl had a tumultuous relationship, I do believe. You did hear in this commentary of a cop asking her about how many times she slapped him. And she said a couple. And you could hear in a subtle way, he was basically saying, you know, what did you expect him to do? Because he asked her that. He's like, well, what did you expect his response to be? He knew how to word it. What did you expect his response to be? So one could say he was leading her to say, yeah, he should have hit me, pushed me, shoved me, whatever. Some might question that cop, and some people have questioned their dealings with this. But in the end, she admitted to hitting him at that point on a live body cam. They could have easily arrested her. I don't know the laws. Some people say they were supposed to arrest whomever said they put their hands on the other person, one or both, but they didn't. They didn't arrest neither party. And as I said before, I don't think it would have mattered if they arrested either of them. They still would have navigated back to each other. And that's what I think. That's said information. Core TV is the source. Will this stand up, this suing the attorney? How will it work? I don't know if it will pan out to be anything, but we will see if it happens. All right, my next commentary is pertaining to the Idaho 4 students. No reward. Why not? As most of you know, a Hyundai Elantra has been introduced into the storyline now. If you have any information of the persons that own a car, similar car that was in that general area on that morning, please call the authorities in Moscow. Trying to find my content, just a second. Well, I had it here. Now I can't find it. One moment. This has been a slow start to this live stream. Too much going on here where I can't get my lives situated. Okay, here we go. WFLA News 8 is the source. Thank you for joining me.
Bluetooth connected.
Killer still out there after 4 University of Idaho students killed in the middle of the night. Police facing all the pressure in the world to produce results. Many wondering, is the case going cold? We're going to get right over to, folks, News Nation's Brian Enton joining us live on stream. If you've been following this story, you've been following Brian Enton, my friend, my colleague, Brian. It's great to have you on stream and great for you to be able to take some time out of your morning. It's afternoon here where you're used to reporting from in Florida. It is, of course, the morning there in Idaho. We're going to ask our moderators on YouTube Live, our social media audience. You can now use hashtag Hey Brian, hashtag Hey JB, either one of those hashtags. We're going to really get to the Q&A portion of our program a little bit quicker than we normally do on this program. So start typing in your questions now. And if it has hashtag Hey Brian or hashtag Hey JB, we can animate it on screen and talk about this story and get a little bit more in depth. But Brian, why don't we just start with you and the very latest from Idaho? Any news developments over the last 24 hours that you'd like to share?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's been really, really slow. There haven't been any significant developments from police. Still no suspect, still no person of interest, but they insist this is not a cold case. So we're hoping that there are things happening behind the scenes that we just don't know about. The families are heartbroken, but also getting more frustrated. They don't have any new information from what we know from our conversations with them. New today, the house is still a crime scene, JB. They've still got crime scene tape up, even though it's been 3 weeks almost. So, but today they're actually going to go back into the house and start removing some of the personal items that belonged to the victims, certain things that they can remove that I guess wouldn't impact the crime scene, and start returning those items to the family members. So that'll obviously be hopefully something that might bring the families a little bit of peace, but it's hard to imagine what they're going through right now. It's just like pure hell and torture with this killer still on the run.
How would you describe the relationship right now, Brian? And a lot of comments are just now coming in, and I'm going to animate them on screen here in just a second. How would you describe being a reporter on this case? And of course, you and I have covered other stories together. How would you describe right now the relationship between law enforcement and the victims' families / the public overall? Is fractured a good word as far as the lack of updates and the lack of anything that they can go on to hold on to hope that there's going to be justice in this case?
Yeah, I think there's definitely frustration that there's not more information being released, but there also does seem to be an understanding among a lot of people that like they're trying to like protect the integrity of the investigation, which is ultimately the most important. You know, like what they tell the media, even what they tell the families at this point, I guess isn't more important than finding the killer, obviously. So I think there's an understanding there that, again, just a hope, since we don't know what's going on, a hope that they're making significant progress behind the scenes. But they, in their latest update yesterday, I mean, they still say officially that they don't have a person of interest or a suspect identified.
And what do you make of that nearly being a month later? I mean, we don't have a suspect, person of interest. What's your analysis of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty shocking to me. I mean, just the murders were so brutal. 4 young people stabbed. It happened in a pretty dense area. That's something like you don't always appreciate from watching the video, but like when you're out there, the house is in a really packed in neighborhood. There's all houses right around. There's really big apartment complexes right there. So I would have thought someone would have seen something. When I showed up here, I figured there's got to be cameras. There's got to be ring doorbells. Like you're in Tampa. I mean, everybody has a camera. And that's just not the case here. I mean, it's a small town. There hasn't been a murder in 7 years. So people don't have cameras. I mean, there's like, at least that we've been able to find, there's like no cameras anywhere around that house. The fraternity party where they were at partying before the murders, there's no cameras there. So I think, that's made it a lot more difficult.
Let's get to the questions and comments that are coming in. We've got another 6 to 7 minutes with Brian Enton of News Nation. Let's go to True Crime with Shannon on YouTube Live. Hashtags for both of us. Do students seem more fearful for their safety right now there? I remember when you first got on the scene, Brian, and you were talking to students, and there was this tension, of course, in the air. Has it remained the same, or things starting to get somewhat back to normal, even slightly?
Right now, get $30 off per axle.
Sorry about that. There's more commercials in these videos for some reason.
Slightly.
I mean, it does feel a little more normal. I think there is still this cloud over the town. I mean, some of the students didn't come back after Thanksgiving. They transferred to online learning because their parents were too nervous for them to come back, or they were too scared to come back. You don't really see people walking around alone, especially at night. Women walk together in pairs. There's cases where people have added additional locks to their doors. A couple people near the house that I talked to got Ring cameras. So people are nervous. I mean, graduation is this weekend. Kaylee Gonzalez was supposed to be graduating this weekend. She's one of the victims. This is normally like a happy, fun college town. And you definitely you got to eat. People are talking about this. And people know the victims. I mean, the victims worked at different restaurants. So I think this is just like hitting everyone still really, really hard, especially because they don't know who did it.
Let's go to this one from Richard. Richard's up next. Again, use hashtag AJB or hashtag ABrian for the next 5 minutes, and we can take your questions to Brian Enton, who's on the ground there in Idaho and has been covering this story for the last couple of weeks. Richard says, are police considering that this is a Danny Rolling type killer, a stranger who may have stalked the house from the woods, and how concerned are they for the students? So as far as this, you've done a lot of reporting on whether or not this is a targeted incident. Of course, Danny Rolling referencing a serial killer sort of situation. What do we say for this question from Richard?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. they continue to call it targeted, but they say they don't have evidence to narrow down who was the target. I think that's another big fear here. Like, people are questioning, was it really targeted? Could it have been random? I think police have been walking a fine line because this is a college town and they don't want to just freak everybody out. But at the same time, like, it's pretty clear, at least if they're being totally, open, that they don't know very much. So I think it's possible, but the technical verbiage used by the police right now is that it was targeted, but they're still investigating to figure out who was the target.
We're getting a lot of questions about the food truck and the food truck component to this. Patty wants to know, #HeyBrian, were you able to talk to anyone who was at the food truck that night?
So we've been trying, we've been trying. I mean, I guess I'll just kind of leave it at that. There's a couple people that we have tried to make contact with, even, gone out and knocked on doors and that kind of thing. People are not talking that are closely connected to this. I don't know why. I mean, in some cases, I know the police and the FBI have specifically told people not to talk to the media. So that part has been difficult, but we're definitely trying behind the scenes.
Michelle, this is just a point of observation from Michelle, Brian, and I have to bring this up. 6 people in a house, but 2 weren't harmed at all. Makes no sense. Especially, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking about the first floor and the 3rd floor. Can you explain the floors one more time? Because I know that of course we had 2 on the 3rd floor, correct? That was part of your report recently.
Yeah, so it's a 3-story house. The victims were found on the 2nd and 3rd floor. The survivors were on the 1st floor. And, there's been reporting about people who lived in the house previously on the 1st floor saying that you couldn't hear, anything happening on the 2nd and 3rd floor. And the way the layout is, like, it does seem like it would be difficult to hear what was going on upstairs. Also, like, if people were out drinking and sort of like were tired and passed out, that could have come into play too.
Let's go to Christine. This is an excellent question. Hashtags for both of us. Why hasn't there been a reward component to this case?
Yeah, that's another good question. Some family members have asked that question. I asked police that question last time I did the interview with them, which was last week. They haven't done any more interviews with us, but they said that it's in their toolbox, that they're still getting tips. And the chief said as recently as yesterday that he doesn't consider this a cold case. So I think they're thinking, like, you kind of hold on to that that tool for when you need it. But hopefully that's a sign that things are moving behind the scenes, that they haven't had to go to that level where they put out a reward.
Let's go to a comment from, Alan says, have all former and current students been considered? And this is just goes to show, like, all former students, all current students, there's no investigative team in the world, Brian, you and I both know that could cover every single solitary student. But let me ask you this, let me kind of use this to pivot off of, there's been so much made of whether or not the names that were cleared so early on in the investigation that, I'm sure that alibis were collected over the course of the opening days of the investigation, that names were cleared. And I believe that one of the families that you spoke with as well said that the names were just scratched off that list way too early on in the process. Is that the general feeling there too? And as I understand it, those names that are getting scratched off the list, so to speak, they're not necessarily 100% in the clear, right?
Yeah, well, that was an interesting comment. He's not the first person I've heard say that. There have been other people who said, why can't they just go take every student's DNA? Right. And that, which obviously, like, wouldn't happen. But in terms of the people who have been cleared, that's been a bit of a frustration because they created this list of cleared people, which is kind of interesting. Like, I've not seen that before, like, covering cases. I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I've never seen that, like, and the list would, like, grow and when they put the releases out. But yeah, they're not, what's frustrating to some of the families and the public is that, like, they're not saying why they were cleared. Like, what was the specific alibi? Was there specific evidence? So they want more information about, like, what the alibis are. But yeah, and you mentioned it, like, a lot of legal experts say just because you're on the cleared list doesn't mean that you don't end up a suspect. I mean, it could change.
Ryan, my time with you has come to an end. I promised I would get you out of here on time. As far as the next steps and really your plan as far as what's ahead in the hours and days ahead, what's next in this case when we have, of course, so little to go off of from investigators, as of course they're combing through mountains, I'm sure, of evidence, still taking in those brown bags, the video that News Nation got of the bags being collected, the cars being towed off the property. This is clearly still very active and still a lot of stones that are still being turned over, so to speak. What's the process now going ahead for you and your plan as you continue to cover this story?
Yeah, in terms of what happens next with the story, I mean, I wish I knew. I don't know. I mean, it's just so slow going right now. I mean, today, obviously, we'll be out there as police are out there again, getting the personal items. News Nation is committed to staying on it. I may go home tomorrow back to Florida for like just 2 days, just to kind of like refresh a little, get new clothes and stuff, and like see my dogs and everything, family, and then come back like on Sunday. But like we have a crew here all weekend long, so if anything breaks, we'll have it covered. But yeah, I mean, we're just waiting. I mean, I just feel for the families. I mean, imagine, what this time period is like. It's like the worst.
When I work on these sacred geometries.
All right, everybody. Oh, wow. What a mess. All right, that's the end of that commentary. They talked about different things in this stream. I thought this was mainly going to be about the reward, but why no reward? So let's just touch on what was mentioned. This is not a cold case. This is coming from the police department, Moscow Police Department. And they're still getting tips. So this is their reasoning for not asking for rewards. So do they have a suspect? Do they have a profile? You hear mentioning of the food truck. Once again, that continues to come up in commentary and tells you that they've tried talking to people behind the scenes, but people were instructed not to speak to the media, those that are closely connected to the case. JB was questioning why not. Well, because they, as he said, instructed not to. And then two people know how the media can be. Keep coming back. And then next thing you know, a person's telling some things. And then it's misconstrued by people who are watching. And that's what happens. Because you have, as I said, busybodies that don't have anything better to do. And they will twist things that are being said. They twist things when no one is saying anything. Testing DNA of every student. We already know that is highly impossible to test the students. Danny Rowland case out of Florida. Is this a serial killer case? I'm sure everyone has their own different opinion of this situation, but no one has any information if indeed this is a serial killer case. You also got information that the families have been able to retrieve items from the house. Naturally, this won't stop a person from grieving, but I'm sure they are ready to get some of their things. I also mentioned, what are the odds that maybe the killer went through some of the things, could leave some type of clue or hint in their belongings? I don't know. I don't know the killer, but you never know. So it'd be interesting if he had left some type of clue in with their belongings. N says there's a cloud over the town. Naturally, it would be. There's a killer on the loose, no matter the motive, no matter the target. It would be a cloud. And then too, it's a university there, small population of students, and nobody knows who the killer is. So you're walking around, imagine walking around every day, talking to people, laughing with people. Life does not stop because someone gets sick, someone dies, there's a killer, they've murdered people. You still have to get up, you still have to pay bills. And that's the thick of it, is that nothing stops because children were murdered. You still have to get up. The world has to still evolve and move. And the killer knows this. He knows nothing's going to stop just because he murdered these 4 kids for whatever reason. It's a very scary situation to know that the killer's out there walking, eating, slumbering, breathing, and doesn't have the right to even be sucking down the same air as everybody else, but he is, or they are. Something I found interesting that Brian said at the beginning of this live is that the houses are closely packed together, no cameras obvious on the property, I guess, or nearby. So there are no neighbors with cameras. Those houses that sit right beside the house to the left and behind it, you mean to tell me none of these people have surveillance cameras? That's bad to me. How could you be in a house with no cameras? Very, very strange to me. To be living in a house, whether you're renting it or you own it. At some point, you should say to yourself, I need to get security cameras for this house. We know that a lot of people won't have them maybe in apartments, but with theft and people who rent from personal landlords and corporations who manage buildings, it is best to have something in your house because you don't ever know when maintenance comes in to repair something while you're not there. You can't be there. They come in because of a leak or something. You may have left something out valuable, may have left something out that wasn't considered valuable, and it goes missing. This is the reason why people put up cameras in their houses, even in their apartments. So I find this interesting. There are no cameras surrounding this property. Once again, no reward for the kids. Police has told Mr. N that they're still receiving tips. And this is not a cold case. So maybe that is the reasoning for no reward. But I also believe too, they don't want this town to look like a, ghost town with posters of kids up, flyers everywhere you go, flyers up in people's businesses, because, naturally people who are concerned about the children, they will put flyers up on their own in their business. So imagine coming to a town that's already got under 30,000 people, and everywhere you go, you'll see signs of 4 people deceased, and you know that they were brutally murdered. So that would be a bad look, but it is what it is. They were killed. We can't take away from that. They were murdered. And a killer is on the loose. You don't have a killer. You have a new tip about a car. Do not know who called that tip in about a car. I pray to God it's not some social media hack that turned in a tip about the white Elantra, because if so, you'll be going around the mulberry bush about a white Elantra. Just keeping it real, because that's all I'm seeing. It's just a lot of meddling people that want to be, want 5 minutes of fame to say they saw something on a Google Earth search and all that nonsense. You have to know when the picture was taken if you do the Google search, So it's like, is this a solid lead, this car business? Was the car parked on a street or parked in front of someone's home or apartment or sitting in the road too long? What's the situation? Where's the proximity of this location where the car was? Maybe he had a problem with a battery. See, you never know. Maybe somebody couldn't start their car. I mean, it is winter. Could have had a flat tire. Could have had an alternator problem. See, you never know. So when I get more information pertaining to this car, I will bring you an update. I'm going to end this stream 46 minutes in. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry about the slow roll. There was some things going on in the background where I had to mute the mic. Some maintenance work being done. But anyway, thank you for your time. You all have a safe weekend. Happy holidays. Be safe shopping. Know the protocols to keep your safety. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Mind the children. Make that phone call if need be. It just may save a life. And that rule should be for children and definitely for adults as well, because you just don't know. You don't want to be a nosy Karen or a messy Karen, but if you see something that appears to be suspicious, you call it in. As I said, it may save a life. I may go later. There was some commentary that came out the other day pertaining to the stalker theory, and it's by Core TV. It's about 43 minutes long. May dice that up. If not, I will be back with another commentary for this evening or the weekend. Please be safe. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during my lives. You all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll be back with more commentary pertaining to the Idaho 4 slangs and also any updated story that's on my community page. Prayers for Brittney Griner. She has now been freed by the Russian government's released from a prison in exchange for a arms dealer that was here in the U.S. serving a 25-year sentence. He had done 11 years, so there was an even swap of prisoners. And there's also a Mr. Whelan, who is still in a prison in Russia. He's been there for 4 years. The American government has had no luck in getting him out of there. For some reason, Russia believes he's a spy. I do not know where they got that information from to think that he was a spy. But then again, it is Russia, the king of spies. So go figure. Prayers for Mr. Whelan that he will also be able to come back, because I got a feeling that may cause some issues down the road with biasness. People will feel like, well, why didn't they get him out? But that's the whole gist of that. You can't make a government release anyone because, one, you're not over there. You'd have to storm the gate to try to get the person freed. So we're going to pray for Mr. Whelan. Also pray that he's not a spy. Go figure. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans.